Imagine waking up in a strange hotel room. You're groggy, maybe a little jet-lagged, and you're just trying to start your day.
Right, just a normal morning on a trip.
Exactly. So you walk into the bathroom, you turn on the tap to brush your teeth, and you wait for the water to run clear.
Like you always do.
Right. But it doesn't. Instead, the water trickling out of the faucet is like thick. It's tinted this dark, sickly brown color.
Oh, that's just...
And then the smell hits you.
Oh, no.
Yeah. A deeply sweet, overpowering odor of, well, decay, and it immediately triggers every primal alarm bell in your nervous system.
I mean, just hearing that makes my stomach turn. It's horrible.
Right. But in early 2013, guests staying at the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles, they didn't have to imagine this scenario. It was their reality.
Yeah, they were living it.
But what the maintenance crew eventually found floating in the rooftop water tanks, that was infinitely more terrifying than, just a catastrophic plumbing failure.
It really is the ultimate violation, isn't it? Of just a fundamental human expectation.
How?
Well, we trust the infrastructure around us, We turn a handle, we expect clean water. We expect the physical world to obey certain immutable laws of physics and biology.
Sure, cause and effect.
Exactly. And when that trust is broken in such a visceral, sensory way, it just shatters our illusion of safety. And that broken illusion is really the absolute core of the paradox we are confronting today.
It definitely is.
Because usually when an investigation concludes, like when a body is found and a cause of death is officially stamped on a coroner's report, society experiences this collective sigh of relief.
Right, the mystery's over.
Yeah, the brain's predictive engine finally gets that missing data. The loop is closed.
And that closure is like a psychological necessity for us. It's how we sleep at night. We conquer the terrifying unknown by basically just throwing a barrage of facts at it until it makes sense.
You give the monster a name.
Right. The monster gets a name, the locked door is explained, the timeline is mapped out.
But this case is the profound exception to that rule.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we are looking at a scenario where the final piece of the puzzle was firmly forced into place by the authorities, and the picture it formed was somehow more agonizing and illogical than the gaping hole of the mystery itself.
It really was.
The official resolution of this case doesn't bring the light. It only deepens the shadows. It forces us to confront this terrifying reality where the legal truth completely betrays the evidence of our own eyes.
Which brings us to our topic, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are immersing ourselves in the deeply unsettling, deeply contested 2013 case of Elisa Lam.
A case I'm sure many of you listening are already familiar with.
Yeah, you probably know the broad strokes. But I need to warn you right now, if you are someone who relies on logic, physics, and straightforward math to make sense of the world, this is going to be incredibly frustrating.
Extremely frustrating.
Because we aren't here to simply recite a tragic timeline. Our mission for this deep dive is to crawl into those eerie, suffocating spaces between the physical architecture of a notoriously dark building. Right. And an official police ruling that defies common sense, and, of course, that 2.5-minute piece of surveillance footage that remains entirely inexplicable.
What's so fascinating here is the violent friction between three different realities.
Three realities.
Yeah. You have the digital reality, the digital footprint she left behind. Then you have the physical reality, which is the unforgiving concrete, steel, and gravity of the hotel. And finally, you have the psychological reality, the internal landscape of a human mind.
That is a great way to frame it.
When a case is officially stamped closed by the LAPD, yet the collective consciousness of millions of people entirely rejects that closure, you have to examine why that friction exists.
Right.
The horror lives in the gap between what we are told happened and what we intrinsically know is possible.
And to understand that gap, we need to understand the traveler and, crucially, the environment she walked into. So let's wind the clock back to early 2013.
Let's do it.
We have Elisa Lam. She's a 21-year-old Canadian university student, and she makes a decision that feels like, honestly, a modern rite of passage for so many people.
Taking a solo trip.
Exactly. She decides to take a solo trip down the west coast of the United States, eventually landing in Los Angeles.
A huge step for a young person.
Huge. And she's intelligent, she's highly curious, and she is deeply embedded in the social media culture of the time. I mean, she's blogging, she's taking photos, she's meticulously curating her journey online.
And if we connect this to the broader sociological picture of the early 2010s, this was a very specific era of digital existence.
Yeah, the Tumblr era.
All right, the Tumblr era. We had moved past the early days of anonymous message board, and we were fully into this era of curated public digital identities.
Oh, for sure.
For a solo traveler, a platform like Tumblr or a travel blog, it served as a digital tether. It was a safety mechanism.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
You could be wandering the gritty streets of an unfamiliar metropolis entirely alone, but psychologically you felt insulated because you were continuously broadcasting your existence to a community.
It's a brilliant point, because it creates this false sense of security. You think, I can't truly vanish because my location is geotagged, my thoughts are timestamped.
Exactly. I am on the grid.
Right, and it makes her deeply relatable to you, to me, to anyone listening who has ever walked through a strange city with a smartphone in their hand, feeling totally invincible.
But that digital tether is really only as strong as the physical environment you are standing in.
Yeah.
And her physical environment was the Cecil Hotel.
Let's talk about the Cecil, because wow.
Yeah, the environment in this case is not a passive backdrop. The Cecil Hotel operates as an active, oppressive variable in this whole equation.
It's almost a character in the story.
It really is. It's crucial to understand the architectural and historical density of this specific building. It was built in the 1920s as this grand, opulent destination, but it suffered a massive decline during the Great Depression.
Right. Right, as the surrounding area, what will become known as Skid Row, also descended into extreme poverty and transience.
Exactly. And it never really recovered from that descent.
We aren't just talking about, like, a budget hotel with peeling wallpaper and a few bad Yelp reviews.
No, not at all.
The history of this building is staggering. It became a long-term boarding house for the marginalized, the desperate, and frankly, the incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, we are talking about decades of documented crime, suicides, and unexplained deaths.
It served as a temporary home for notorious serial killers, like Richard Ramirez, Jack Unterweger. The walls of this building had absorbed a century of human misery.
And a transient space like a massive aging hotel is a sociological anomaly anyway. Thousands of people filter through it, leaving behind energetic and psychological imprints. Over decades, a building with that much concentrated trauma, it begins to generate its own gravity. It becomes a magnet.
That's a creepy way to think about it, but it's true.
There's a concept in environmental psychology called behavioral setting theory. It suggests that physical environments actively shape human behavior and perception.
Okay, so like a dark alley makes you walk faster.
Exactly. So when you walk into a space characterized by dark, narrow hallways, flickering fluorescent lights, and an institutional history of violence, your nervous system responds to that architecture. The building itself becomes a hostile entity.
So you take this vibrant, digitally connected 21-year-old, and she drops her bags in a monolith of dark history.
Right.
And at first, the digital tether holds. She's exploring, she is checking in, she is updating her family. And then the line goes dead.
Total, abrupt silence.
It's just gone.
And the suddenness of that silence is the first massive red flag. For a digital native accustomed to constant broadcasting, a sudden cessation of activity isn't just taking a break. It's an anomaly that suggests immediate intervention is needed.
So her family panics, obviously. They contact the Los Angeles Police Department, and an official search is launched.
Which is standard procedure.
Right. But this is where the narrative hits a massive structural brick wall. Because the police search the hotel, they search her room, and they find absolutely nothing.
And this raises an incredibly important question about the limitations of a modern physical investigation.
Yeah.
The authorities are standing in a massive enclosed structure in the middle of one of the most populated cities on Earth. Yet the physical space yields 0 data points.
Wait, I need to stop you right there and really emphasize this to anyone listening, because this is where the physics of the disappearance make absolutely no sense.
Please do.
How does someone simply evaporate inside a commercial building in 2013? I mean, this isn't the wilderness, this isn't the middle of the woods, this is a hotel.
Right, there are systems in place.
Exactly. There are keycard logs, there is a lobby with staff, there are housekeeping schedules, there are hundreds of other guests separated by paper-thin walls.
And yet, nothing.
When police open her door, there is no sign of forced entry. Her belongings are there. There are no signs of a struggle, no blood, no overturned furniture.
It's pristine.
It is the ultimate locked room mystery, but blown up to an architectural scale. People do not just glitch out of reality.
You're exactly right to highlight that impossibility. The absence of physical evidence is deafening here.
Yeah.
It creates an investigative vacuum.
Absolutely.
When you have no fingerprints, no witnesses, no defensive wounds, an entirely pristine hotel room, traditional detective work stalls, the physical world has essentially refused to cooperate.
So what do?
Well, the LAPD had to pivot entirely to the digital realm. They needed a timestamp. They needed proof of life.
Right.
And that pivot led them to the only piece of tangible evidence they had. A piece of digital surveillance footage that was intended to clarify the timeline, but instead threw the entire world into a state of profound dread.
Releasing that footage was supposed to be a standard crowdsourcing tactic, right? Show the public the last known image of the missing person, and just hope someone recognizes the jacket she's wearing or remembers seeing her in the lobby.
Yeah, the intent was purely practical. But the reality of what that 2.5-minute video contained transcended police work.
It really did.
It became a psychological phenomenon.
Okay, let's pull this video apart frame by frame. Because if you haven't seen it, or, if you only remember the broad strokes from back in 2013, you have to understand the specific choreography of this footage.
It is the fulcrum of the entire mystery.
It is. Millions of people have watched this tape, and it defies every single parameter of normal human behavior. So, we're looking at an elevator car, the doors open, and Elisa walks in.
And observe her initial action here. She doesn't just select a floor.
Yeah.
She steps up to the control panel and presses multiple buttons in a rapid vertical sequence. I mean, she is lighting up the panel.
It's frantic. It's not someone who forgot their floor and pressed, 2 buttons. It looks like a desperate attempt to force the elevator to do something.
Right.
But here is the first mechanical anomaly. The elevator doors do not close. They remain wide open, exposing her to the hallway.
And the failure of the doors to close is a crucial variable. In older buildings, elevator proximity sensors or door hold mechanisms can be highly temperamental.
Yeah, we've all been in a janky elevator.
Exactly. But for a person experiencing extreme anxiety, a door that refuses to close is a catastrophic failure of a safety boundary. The elevator is supposed to be an escape vehicle. When it doesn't move, the vehicle becomes a trap.
Oh, wow. And you can see that realization wash over her in the video.
Yeah.
Because she steps cautiously toward the open door and she looks out into the hallway.
But it's the way she looks out that is so deeply unnerving.
Yes. She doesn't stick her head out to see who is holding the elevator like normal people do. She leans out with this jerky, hyper-vigilant, almost bird-like movement. She snaps her head left, then right, and then she immediately recoils back into the elevator car.
This is where we have to discuss the biology of fear. Because what we are witnessing on that tape is the physical manifestation of a fight-or-flight response pushed to its absolute limit.
It's so intense to watch.
Her movements are entirely consistent with an evasion tactic. When she recoils back into the car, look at where she positions herself.
She presses herself completely flat against the interior wall, specifically in the front corner of the elevator, right next to the button panel.
Exactly. From a tactical standpoint, that is the single most defensible position in that small square footage.
Because of the angle.
Yes. By pressing herself against that specific wall, she is utilizing the blind spot of the door frame. Anyone walking past the elevator in the hallway would look in and see an empty car.
That's terrifying.
She is actively, deliberately hiding from a perceived threat.
It's like watching a terrifying game of hide and seek, but we can only see one player. And then the choreography gets even more bizarre, because whatever she is hiding from, she eventually decides the elevator is no longer safe.
She steps out.
Yeah, she steps out into the hallway, standing just out of view of the camera, and then steps back into the frame. And this is when the hand gestures start.
The kinesics, the physical vocabulary of her body language in this moment, completely break from standard human communication.
It's so strange. She steps out, and her arms begin to move in these wide, fluid, deeply erratic motions.
Right.
I've seen people describe it as looking like she is treading water in thin air. Her wrists are bending at strange angles. It's almost graceful, but terrifyingly unnatural.
Yeah.
It looks like she's conducting an invisible orchestra, or trying to physically push away something that has no mass.
And when we analyze performative or erratic movement like that, especially in the context of extreme distress, it usually points to a complete sensory disconnect.
What do you mean by that?
Well, her brain is firing motor commands based on a reality that only she is experiencing. She is negotiating, pleading, or interacting with a stimulus that the camera cannot detect.
And that brings us to the most suffocating part of this video. The true horror isn't just what Elisa is doing. The horror is the negative space. It's what the camera doesn't show.
The empty hallway.
Yes, the empty hallway. The entire time she is hiding, the entire time she is frantically checking the corridor, the entire time her hands are waving in the air at some unseen presence.
The hallway is completely, utterly empty.
Empty. No one walks by. No one steps into the frame to ask if she's okay. No one follows her. Eventually, she walks out of the frame entirely, down the left side of the hallway. And then, as if playing a sick joke, the elevator doors finally slide shut on their own.
The psychology of why this negative space terrifies us is deeply rooted in our neurobiology.
Really? How so?
Well, humans possess mirror neurons. These are the brain cells that allow us to feel empathy, to understand the actions of others by mirroring them in our own minds. So when we watch that video, our mirror neurons recognize her profound terror. Our brain's predictive engine immediately scans the environment, demanding to see the predator.
We want to see the threat.
Exactly. The equation in our head is extreme fear equals an extreme threat.
But the video refuses to provide the predator.
Precisely. And when the brain is denied the sensory input it expects, it panics. It attempts to fill in the blank.
Which is usually worse than the reality.
Oh, absolutely. The human imagination, attempting to make sense of an invisible threat in a notoriously haunted building, will conjure scenarios far worse than any physical reality. The empty hallway becomes a canvas for our deepest, most primal fears.
And that is exactly what happened on a global scale. This video wasn't just watched, it was dissected by millions of people in 2013.
Endlessly dissected.
We have to remember that this was the exact moment when algorithmic social media and crowdsourced internet sleuthing were really colliding. Reddit, YouTube, true crime forums, they gamified this tragedy.
Oh, heavily. People were downloading the video, slowing it down, altering the contrast.
They were looking for any data point to satisfy that predictive engine.
Exactly. And because the video was heavily compressed, people started seeing digital artifacts.
Yeah.
Pixels shifting in the background, and they claimed it was a ghost.
Or a demon or someone's shoe.
Right. Or they noticed a missing timestamp on the bottom of the video, which led to massive conspiracy theories about the hotel staff editing the tape to protect a murderer. It became a digital Rorschach test.
A Rorschach test is the perfect way to describe it.
There's this psychological phenomenon called pareidolia. It's where the mind perceives a specific, often meaningful image in a random or ambiguous visual pattern.
Like seeing faces in clouds.
Exactly, seeing faces in clouds or demons in video compression static. The internet descended into mass pareidolia. But the tragic, heavy irony of this digital frenzy is that while millions of eyes were scrutinizing individual pixels, searching for ghosts in the machine,
Right.
the agonizing biological truth was quietly waiting to be discovered in the physical world.
Which brings us back to the water. The visceral, horrifying pivot from digital speculation to biological decay.
We have to move out of the abstract space of the internet and step back into the brutal reality of the Cecil Hotel's infrastructure.
Because while the internet was theorizing about invisible predators, the building itself started to reject the silence. It started in the plumbing. Let's return to those guests.
The ones brushing their teeth.
Right. The water pressure drops, the water turns brown, the smell of rot permeates the bathrooms.
From an evolutionary standpoint, the human disgust response is a highly tuned survival mechanism designed to protect us from pathogens.
So it's hardwired.
Totally hardwired. When the fundamental municipal supply of a massive building is compromised in such a multi-sensory way, taste, color, and odor, it bypasses logic and hits the brainstem. It screams of severe biological contamination.
The hotel management is fielding a barrage of complaints, obviously. So they dispatch their maintenance workers. Now, map this physical journey for me, because this isn't just checking a pipe under a sink. The municipal water supply for a high-rise building of that era relies on gravity.
Right, the water tanks are on the roof.
Exactly.
So the maintenance worker has to navigate to the highest point of the building. They have to access the roof, approach these massive industrial cisterns, climb a ladder to the top of a tank, and manually inspect the water supply.
And when he lifts the heavy hatch of one of those tanks and peers down into the dark water, he finds the decomposing body of Elisa Lam.
It is an apocalyptic collision of the abstract mystery and horrifying biological reality.
Stop and think about the sheer cascading trauma of that moment. I mean, for the guests who realize what they have been drinking and bathing in for nearly 2 weeks.
Unthinkable.
For the worker who made the discovery. And for the LAPD investigators who finally have their body, who finally have their where, but are suddenly slammed with a how that defies the very laws of physics.
Right, because finding the body is supposed to be the anchor that grounds the investigation.
Exactly.
But in this case, the specific location of the body shattered the fundamental mechanics of reality. Let's deeply analyze the logistics of this environment, because the physical barriers are exactly why the public refuses to accept the official narrative.
Okay, let's break down this architectural obstacle course. First, you have the journey to the roof. You don't just hit the top button on the elevator and step out into the sunshine. The roof of a massive commercial building in Los Angeles is heavily restricted.
Building and fire codes mandate strict control over roof access. The doors leading to the roof of the Cecil Hotel were locked. But more importantly, they were alarmed.
Alarms?
Yes. Bypassing them theoretically required a staff key or a deep familiarity with the building's security blind spots, such as, utilizing specific fire escapes on the exterior of the building.
But let's assume, just for a moment, that someone, either Elisa herself or an attacker, managed to bypass the alarmed doors without triggering a response, or climbed the exterior fire escapes in the dark.
Okay, that's assuming that.
You are now standing on the roof. You still have to deal with the water tank itself.
And these are not small residential rain barrels. We are talking about massive industrial-grade water cisterns designed to hold thousands of gallons of water.
Right.
They are elevated on concrete blocks. They are constructed of heavy metal. To get inside, you have to scale a maintenance ladder to the top of the cylinder.
And once you are balancing at the top of that ladder, you face the lid, the hatch. And this is a detail that breaks my brain. This is the Mount Everest of physical contradictions in this case. Explain the mechanics of this lid.
Well, a commercial water tank hatch is not like a Tupperware lid. It is designed to be a heavy, robust barrier against the elements, against urban wildlife, and against deliberate contamination. We are talking about a thick, galvanized metal plate. Depending on the exact specifications and the age of the tank, these lids can weigh anywhere from 20 to 40 pounds.
Wow.
Some operate on rusted hinges, others must be manually lifted and shifted aside.
So imagine the physics required here. You are balancing on a wet, slick surface at the top of a metal cylinder on a rooftop. You have to achieve the leverage to lift or slide a heavy, likely rusted metal hatch.
It's hard enough for a maintenance worker.
Right. If we assume Elisa Lam was murdered, you are telling me a killer managed to carry or force a 21-year-old woman up a fire escape, scale an industrial tank, pry open a heavy lid, drop her inside, and slide the heavy lid back into place, all without leaving a single drop of blood, a single defensive wound on her body, or a single trace of a struggle on the roof.
The forensic impossibility of a murder scenario is staggering.
It makes no sense.
The coroner's report was incredibly thorough. There was no evidence of physical trauma, no signs of sexual assault, no defensive wounds under her fingernails. If someone forced her into that tank, the lack of a physical struggle defies belief.
Which brings us to the alternative, the theory that she did it herself.
And if she acted alone, the logistical hurdles remain equally baffling. How does a young woman in the dark bypass the security, scale the tank, maneuver the heavy metal lid, climb inside, and then, this is the critical detail, how does that heavy lid get closed from the inside?
It's a mechanical contradiction. It's like finding a car perfectly parked on the summit of Mount Everest, and the official police report concludes, oh, the driver just took a wrong turn.
Right.
The case file might be legally closed, but the basic physics scream that the conclusion is impossible. You cannot pull a heavy, flush metal lid closed over your own head while treading water in a dark tank.
Actually, and I have to correct a widespread misconception there because it radically alters the context.
Oh, really?
Yes. While early media reports and rampant internet rumors insisted the lid was found closed, the maintenance worker who actually discovered her testified that the hatch was, in fact, open when he climbed the ladder.
Wait, stop right there. The lid was open.
Yes, the worker found the hatch open.
Wow.
The internet had fixated on the heavy, closed lid as proof of a conspiracy or a cover-up. But the reality is that the physical barrier of closing the lid from the inside didn't actually exist.
That actually completely changes the mechanical context. But, I mean, it doesn't solve the why. Even if the lid was open, why would she willingly undertake this massive, complex physical obstacle course? Why bypass alarms, climb a tank, and jump into freezing dark water in the middle of the night?
To answer the why, we have to move away from the physical architecture of the building and enter the psychological architecture of the human mind. After months of investigation, toxicology reports, and forensic analysis, the Los Angeles County coroner officially ruled her death an accidental drowning. The foundational basis for this ruling was her medical history. Elisa Lam had a documented severe case of bipolar disorder.
Okay, let's unpack the reality of this ruling, because this is where the external physics and the internal chemistry collide violently. Bipolar disorder is not just, mood swings. In its most severe manifestations, it can completely shatter a person's reality.
We really need to understand the neurochemistry of a severe manic or psychotic episode. Bipolar disorder involves extreme fluctuations in mood and energy, driven by neurotransmitter imbalances in the brain, specifically dopamine and serotonin.
Right.
During a severe manic phase, especially if medication is altered, inconsistent, or deliberately stopped, which the toxicology report indicated might have been the case with her prescription levels, the brain can tip into full-blown psychosis.
And psychosis isn't just feeling anxious. It is a fundamental break from objective reality.
Exactly. The brain's predictive engine, which we talked about earlier, completely misfires. It begins generating threats that do not exist in the physical world. Paranoia becomes absolute. Hallucinations, both auditory and visual, can manifest.
Oh, wow.
The body is flooded with adrenaline, cortisol, and the sheer terror of a fight-or-flight response. But the threat is originating from inside the house, so to speak.
So if we apply that neurochemical reality to the official timeline, the authorities are concluding that Elisa Lam, suffering from a catastrophic psychological break, believed she was being hunted.
Yes.
The bizarre elevator bands, the frantic hand gestures, the desperate need to hide in the blind spot of the door. She was reacting to a predator that her own brain had manufactured.
Yes. The official narrative suggests that this overwhelming adrenaline-fueled terror gave her the desperate energy required to navigate to the roof, perhaps utilizing the fire escape to bypass the alarm doors. She saw the massive water tanks not as a hazard, but as the ultimate hiding place, a fortress. She scaled the ladder, opened the hatch, and entered the water to escape the invisible monsters her mind had created.
Oh, that's sad.
Once inside, the physical reality of the freezing water, the dark, and the sheer slick walls of the tank took over. Unable to climb back out, she tragically drowned.
I want to be incredibly respectful when we discuss mental health, because a severe psychotic break is a devastating, terrifying reality for the person experiencing it. It is a genuine medical emergency.
Absolutely.
But I have to push back on behalf of everyone who has ever looked at this case.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
We can accept the internal horror of psychosis. We can accept that her brain was lying to her, but delusions do not grant you the ability to bend the laws of physical space. Even if the hatch was open, she still had to find her way to a pitch-black roof in a strange labyrinthine hotel. She still had to scale an industrial structure in the dark. The sheer amount of physical determination required... It's a massive pill to swallow.
And that hesitation, that refusal to swallow the pill, is why the case remains culturally immortal. The explanation demands that we accept a highly improbable chain of physical events executed perfectly by someone whose mind was supposedly fracturing into chaos.
It's hard to reconcile.
It feels profoundly unsatisfying because it relies on coincidence and superhuman luck masking a tragedy.
Which brings us right back to where we started. We circle back to the negative space of that elevator video because the case file is boxed up. The ruling is official. The Cecil Hotel was eventually rebranded and sold.
Yeah, they tried to move on.
But that video remains permanently etched into the digital ether. You can pull it up right now, watch her press those buttons, and her behavior continues to completely defy comfortable, rational reasoning.
When you watch that video through the lens of a psychotic break, it paints a portrait of a mind under total siege. But it also raises a terrifying philosophical question about the nature of reality itself.
How so?
Well, we rely on our senses to navigate the world. We rely on our eyes to see a threat, our ears to hear it. But if the very tools you use to assess reality turn against you, what is real? In that flickering hallway, to her the threat was undeniable. The fear was physical. The monsters were real.
It is the definition of a waking nightmare. You are sprinting away from a predator that nobody else can see. And because nobody else can see it, nobody can intervene. Nobody can pull you out of the tank.
Right.
We all want to believe that if we are backed into a corner, if we scream loud enough, someone will hear us and save us. But if the danger is a chemical misfiring of your own perception, help literally cannot reach you. You are entirely alone with the terror.
When we synthesize the entire landscape of this story, the oppressive, violent architectural history of the Cecil Hotel, the bizarre, unexplainable visual evidence of the elevator footage, the horrifying sensory violation of the water tanks, and the severe logistical contradictions of the physical space, we realize why this mystery refuses to die.
It remains a fixture in the modern consciousness, not because the LAPD left the file open. They didn't. They legally closed it. It remains a fixture because a stamp on a piece of paper cannot silence the contradictions.
Not at all.
The words accidental drowning do not adequately explain the fluid conducting hand gestures. They don't erase the dark gravity of Skid Row. They don't make the math of the rooftop obstacle course add up perfectly.
We're conditioned to be terrified of the unknown. We love ghost stories. We are terrified of haunted hotels with dark reputations and decades of blood on the floorboards.
Oh, for sure.
We are terrified of flickering lights, empty hallways, and elevator doors that open to reveal an abyss. But the tragedy of Elisa Lam suggests something far, far more terrifying than any ghost or urban legend ever could.
What could possibly be scarier than the physical monsters we imagine in the dark?
Consider this as a final thought, a final variable to process. What if the most impenetrable, terrifying locked room isn't the heavy brick and mortar of the Cecil Hotel?
Okay.
What if it isn't an industrial water tank on a restricted rooftop? What if the ultimate inescapable locked room mystery is the human mind itself, suddenly and inexplicably turning against its occupant, locking them inside a nightmare reality that no one else can see and no one else can break into?
That is a thought that will linger in the dark long after we finish speaking today. The profound fragility of the mind and the terrifying lonely spaces where reality and perception violently fracture. We've traced a path from a bright, optimistic, heavily documented journey to an empty, silent hallway to the freezing dark of a rooftop tank. Thank you for joining us as we navigated the friction between what is known and what is impossible.
It's been a chilling one.
If you want to continue exploring the shadows of the unexplained, if you want to understand the mysteries that refuse to stay closed, make sure you subscribe to the channel Unreal Tales. The mysteries don't stop here, and neither do we.